There is a great disturbance in the Force, but I will always be with you. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, the very first attempt by Disney, throwing their hat into the ring on one of Hollywood's most beloved movie franchises. So, how was it? And more importantly, what did you guys think? Well, this is just my opinion, but let's find out. Movies, music, and monsters. Hey guys, Dan Monroe here from Movies, Music, and Monsters, talking about Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Now again, this is not a professional review, just me giving my thoughts about this film, which, disclaimer, if they're different than yours, no worries, that's fine. This is just my opinion. So, let's dive in. Guys, we have reached over 120,000 subscribers in only 9 months, and I can't thank all of you enough for the incredible support for the channel. And speaking of incredible support, check out this awesome hand-drawn artwork by Jim Pinteralli. This guy does the most amazing stuff using all different kinds of really cool objects. Check out his Facebook page, link in the description. Disney and Planet of the Apes. I have to admit, at first, this was more than a little bit concerning to me prior to the film coming out. I mean, as far as Disney's involvement in a lot of these classic franchises, it's no secret to anybody out there that I have not particularly been a large fan of the way Disney has handled a lot of the major franchises in the past several years. I really did like The Force Awakens. I mean, yeah, it had its problems, but overall I thought it was a pretty good reintroduction to the franchise that, shall we say, took a completely different direction than I thought it was going to go. Like, really, really way out there. But hey, it is what it is. We recently had the very first Alien Disney movie, Alien Romulus, which I thought was pretty good. The alien practical effects were awesome, and I really enjoyed this film until the last 30 minutes when it suddenly shifted and became literally a different film, but that's the topic of another video. And that leads us to Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, which I saw recently with the same understandable Disney concern that I had in the past, and overall, I guess I would have to say I thought the movie was fine. Going back a few years in the Apes franchise, obviously I was an enormous fan of the original practical effects Apes movies and also the TV series, which was awesome. Highly recommended. If you haven't seen the Apes TV series, check it out. The Tim Burton Planet of the Apes remake doesn't rank very highly on my list of Apes movies, but they did one thing absolutely right. They used actors in practical makeup, which was just freaking awesome. But I do have to say I really did enjoy the very first CGI Apes movie, Rise of the Planet of the Apes. The CGI effects were good enough to drive the story without necessarily taking me out of the experience. I thought the acting and the casting were great. The character arcs and classic movie throwbacks were fun to watch, and overall I thought it was a pretty good time. Dawn of the Planet of the Apes and War for the Planet of the Apes were a little bit of a slower burn than I normally like, but still really well produced, finally concluding the story arc of Caesar, and when it finally ended, I felt like they did a good job of not only tying up the loose ends, but also giving the character and the franchise a more than adequate conclusion to the trilogy. Then here comes Disney in extreme desperate need to recoup the billions of dollars they spent on all these franchises they've purchased, which to me was one of the main reasons I always was a bit hesitant in trusting that company with these beloved stories. I mean, come on. There's no question. It's money. They spent the money. They want the money back. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes was directed by Wes Ball, written by Josh Friedman, Rick Jaffa, and Amanda Silver, which is basically the beginning of a new trilogy set many years past the time of Caesar, when at this point he's really nothing more than a fading historical memory whose legacy is being, I don't know, shall we say, bent to fit the new ape regime. I thought the lead ape character, Noah, was pretty well written, cute, but also straddled with some internal daddy issues. The Nova character was interesting, although I can't really say I completely appreciated her motivation as a character in the film from the beginning, where she appeared mute, to the end, where it was implied that she might have actually shot Noah, but then didn't. Raka the orangutan was awesome, wise, funny, fun to watch, obviously the older mentor-teacher character that we see in just about every one of these quote-unquote hero's journey motifs. I think the idea of that Proximus Caesar was interesting. Again, another example of a villain not necessarily realizing or acknowledging the fact, for that matter, that he himself is doing something wrong, just trying to do what, in his opinion, is best for his people, or apes, or whatever. The CGI, of course, was top-notch, although at times a little bit too video game looking for me, but I totally get it. They want the younger generation to be invested in the stories. And I guess, sadly, in a way, they have to make it look maybe more like a video game to keep the attention of the younger people. I don't know. Maybe. One thing I thought was really interesting, the way the composer added these very short bursts of memorable classic music from the original 1968 Planet of the Apes film, like here and there, sprinkled in lightly. I would literally find myself sitting up in my seat going, "Hey, I know that music. How cool is that?" And that makes me wonder whether or not it was intentional. One of the most fascinating aspects of all these new Planet of the Apes movies is, to me, are they eventually going to end up reconnecting with the original 1968 Planet of the Apes film? In Rise of the Planet of the Apes, we saw a brief shot claiming that a group of astronauts were lost in space, obviously, I guess, attributing to Taylor and his crew initially disappearing, which made me really think, wouldn't this be cool? I have no idea if that's the plan to eventually reconnect with the original movie, but it certainly would be more than interesting to see. Those little sprinkles of music here and there made me really wonder if it wasn't maybe a conscious decision by the director to get the fans of the classic movies re-engaged, even momentarily, with those musical themes to maybe put in motion the possibility that they were heading in that direction. Honestly, however, I highly doubt it. The only way you could do it is if somewhere down the road they completely abandoned the CGI special effects and ended up evolving or de-evolving back into practical makeup effects for the actors to match the original films. Same thing with the outfits that they wear, the symbols all over Ape City. And then there's Ape City itself, where the dwellings are in the mountainous areas. God, that would be so absolutely amazing. And if they did it, probably one of the greatest overall movie arcs of any series in cinematic history if they went down that route. But for some reason, I just don't think that's the plan, unfortunately. But who knows? It's certainly super cool to think about. I wasn't completely thrilled with how the film finally ended up playing out in the third act, with the water rushing in and destroying all the lost knowledge of man with the tanks and the weapons. I don't know. I personally think it would have been much more interesting if maybe the apes had actually gotten a hold of that stuff, attempted to understand how it worked, which would lead us into another film, which to me would have been much more interesting. Apes trying to figure out and utilizing human technology and where that might take the ape civilization, but it just didn't go that way. We've got the apes and a human staring up into space, seeing something through the telescope, which I assume they're going to play that out in the next movie. And again, this is one of my only main grievances with the film. The movie ends with humans connecting with more humans. They're on their way. They're showing up soon. Almost exactly what we saw in the last trilogy. Just nothing special, nothing really new, kind of just more of the same. And I guess that was generally my complete takeaway. Good characters, great special effects, a bit of a, forgettable storyline that really didn't excite me too much for the next one. It was fine. I walked away thinking, yeah, that was fine. But again, that's just my opinion. So what did you guys think? Did you see the film? Are you planning to see the film? Did you see it on the big screen, or are you more of that watch it at home with a bucket of stale popcorn type? As always, I'd like to thank all of you for tuning in, and never ever forget this. Without you, there would be none of this. And if you enjoyed this video and you like this kind of stuff, please consider subscribing to the channel. I've got a whole bunch of new videos coming up really soon that I know you guys are just gonna dig. And please feel free to stop back anytime as we, together, continue our conversation on movies, music, and monsters. Movies, music, and monsters.